Let me thank everyone for being present this morning. There are a number of people standing with me. You'll be hearing from a few of them. I do want to acknowledge the city council members who are standing here. Councilmember BRENDA STARDIG, who's the chairperson of Public Safety and Homeland, I keep saying Homeland Security, I'm having one of my moments. So thank you. And then Councilmember Jack Christie is with us, and let's see, one more? Okay. And then, of course, you'll be hearing from Chief Acevedo very shortly. Steve Williams, over the Director of Public Health, is here as well, and Chief Rodney West with the Fire Department is here, along with others, and you'll be hearing from some. In June, we announced that we will be doing a crackdown on the Kush problem that has been plaguing our city and, quite honestly, most of the nation. We know it affects the quality of life of citizens in areas where people are selling or using it. It stretches the resources of our first responders, police, and fire, and this drug can have fatal consequences for the persons who are using it. And we have seen those consequences. But we also want to be smart about how we approach this problem. Going after the low-level consumer will not be the most effective method. Instead, we want to go after the people who are selling Kush. And as you very well know, the people who are using Kush are either some on our underpasses, some are walking our streets, some are in downtown, and they're walking like zombies in our parks, and they can be very aggressive. But just removing them off the street does not really mitigate the problem. Thanks to the efforts of officers with the HPD Narcotics Division, we've made a significant impact on the problem since we first talked about it in June of this year. More than 200 arrests have been made so far this year. The latest came last night when officers arrested an individual suspected of being a major player in the selling of Kush. As part of an undercover operation overnight, they were able to arrange to buy a large amount of Kush from the suspect. This resulted in the seizure of more than 300 pounds of the drug, more than 14,000 packages, which is equivalent to maybe about 84,000 doses, and with a street value of more than $2.2 million. To give you some perspective, before last night's bust, we had seized about 600 pounds of Kush. Last night, we seized 300 pounds. Last night's efforts resulted in almost half as much being taken off the street. Earlier this morning, I had asked HPD and the city operating officer, Harry Hayes, to bring all of what was seized to us this morning so we could put it on display. It's one of the few times this year that the mayor has been overruled and said, no, we won't do that, but we brought some of what was seized last night, and if I can direct you to the photos, you can see the remaining amount. It was a large amount. And the point that I want to emphasize right now is that there have been a lot of concerns raised by people within our community, rightfully so, about people who are wandering around or on the streets. And one of the best ways that I think that we can help to ameliorate those issues in our neighborhoods, on underpasses, is to reduce the supply of people who are selling and distributing this toxic substance. We have some photos here of just some of the drugs seized overnight, a bundle of Kush to show you, and some empty packages, all to give you an idea of what we are dealing with here. We estimate last night's seizure alone will save about thousands of EMS calls. Those are paramedics freed up to serve citizens with other important medical needs, and Dr. Persse is here who can speak to that. I'm told by Houston Medical Director, Dr. David Persse, that we are seeing progress with 187 reported cases in September compared to 97 in October and 78 last month. Clearly, our efforts are having an impact, and the efforts on our part will not stop, but will only intensify. It is important to note Houston is not alone in combating what has become a nationwide issue. However, we believe the comprehensive work of the Houston Police Department and the Houston Fire Departments are having a significant impact. And we will continue to work on this until it is under control and no longer taxing our resources. And then it's a part of our comprehensive strategy to address homelessness, transient, those on our streets, vagrancy, and what you call panhandlers, and the list goes on. And a more comprehensive plan will be outlined next month. With that being said, let me call on Chief Acevedo for his comments this morning. He will be followed by Dr. David Persse.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. And for the record, that was Chief Curran that said no. I would have brought it myself in my own Tahoe. But thank you, Mayor, for your leadership, and the council members for your leadership. He's retiring, so we can pick on him a little bit. It's interesting that just last week I was standing at this podium, and this issue came up. And what I talked about was I promised that we were going to focus on the distribution network. We're going to focus on the major players, because we have to think big, and the only way we're going to impact it is to go after them. And today it's really a great sense of honor and really pride that we're standing here with this great team of Houston police officers and these great leaders that have made it happen. Before you ask in regards to last night's bust, it's really important for folks to understand this is an ongoing investigation. So we're not going to release the mugshot of the suspect. We're still working with our county and federal partners to see what the appropriate charges are and what level of prosecution we will seek, not to mention the fact that we want to continue to cast a wider and wider net to see how many of these really criminals that are poisoning our community we can bring to justice. Again, like I said, I'm very proud of narcotics and our patrol folks that really work diligently. Yeah, I've been here a week, and I can tell you already, I have fallen in love with the men and women of the Houston Police Department. From armored car takeover robbers that are doing all these things to us, to this narcotics bust, and I mentioned to the mayor a little while ago, we took a lot of rifles and assault rifles off the streets in another arrest. It is a department that is singularly focused on keeping this city safe. And so my commitment, Mayor, and it's interesting because you actually brought up this epidemic in our conversations, is that we will continue to focus on the worst of the worst, and we will deliver results. So I want to congratulate Chief Kern and the Narcotics Division. Just tell you, just fantastic work, and I'm convinced that we've just saved not only lives, but our very precious resources. Thank you very much.
Dr. Persse.
Good morning, everyone. And I just want to echo a couple of things that the mayor said and point out that these results that you're seeing are really an underestimate of the impact. Kush, as we know, we've been dealing with, and Kush is a complicated drug. When we talk about Kush, we're not talking about one drug. We're actually talking about a family of drugs. We're also talking about backyard pharmacists that are creating these drugs, and their ability to make sure that they calculate the dose right is terrible. And so some people are getting exposed to a little bit of drug, other people are getting exposed to really large amounts of drug, and the consequences of those folks who get large amounts of drugs can be devastating. And we've had people have seizures, we've had people die, we've had people have really terrible consequences. And so from a medical standpoint, this is a really difficult challenge. And so the more we can do to get this drug off the street, the greater the community is going to be, the healthier the community is going to be. And I want to point out that the mayor pointed out how we've had the numbers of Kush cases that are being transported to the Houston Fire Department have come down. And, you know, a couple months ago it was 187, now we're down to 78. In the summer we were well over 200. But that is an underestimate for two reasons. One is that number comes from when a firefighter has solid reason to believe that the person has been exposed to Kush. They either tell them or we find them with the Kush. So there's a little bit of underreporting because the symptoms, people can be just plain sick, they can be nauseated, they have altered mental status, they're confused, they don't know what's going on, and there are other things that can cause that, so there's probably some degree of underreporting for the firefighters. But at another level, and probably even more important from a public health level, the people who engage in using Kush all day long, this impacts their health on a larger basis. And so that entire population of folks that the mayor referred to who are using Kush chronically, they may not wind up in the back of an ambulance because of Kush, but they're probably going to wind up in the back of an ambulance because of respiratory problems, blood pressure problems, heart disease problems, malnutrition, exposure to the elements. And this time of year, of course, is getting colder. Those are really important things. So while on one hand these numbers are impressive, if you just look at the numbers, you're still not appreciating the scope of this. This is a huge problem, and the police department, the fire department work together, in the health department, we are putting a real dent in this. And I for one, am very impressed, and I hope that the public is as well. Thank you, Mayor.
So I want to thank Dr. Persse, and we'll take any questions that any of you may have. I'm sorry.
Mayor, we
Was I
have
gonna-
one of our sergeants.
Oh, come on.
wants to say a couple of little.
Come on, Sarge.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, good morning. I'm Sergeant Marcia Todd. Yesterday was a good day for us in our narcotics division. We had multiple arrest and seizure incidents beginning early in the morning and through late last night. In one incident, our officers seized approximately 160 kilos of cocaine. In a second investigation, our officers seized cocaine, methamphetamine, marijuana, heroin, ecstasy, and various other prescription drugs. Currency and 31 firearms were taken off the street. In this Kush investigation that occurred late last night, we seized approximately, like they said, 14,000 packages of Kush weighing almost 330 pounds. We brought some samples, like they've said today. This is the actual Kush that was taken off the street, and then these are just various sample packages. These, on this side, you can touch. I'd ask you not to touch those. Like the mayor said, beginning in June of last year, our division took a hard stance against this dangerous drug. We began targeting mid-level distributors, including retail stores. We created an additional narcotics squad to address the specific threat. Our Kush squad, our FAST unit, our general enforcement squads, as well as our major drug squads have all worked diligently to combat this threat against the city of Houston. And like he said, since January of this year, we filed over 200 charges for this substance and seized hundreds of pounds of Kush. Not only that, we've seized millions of dollars in currency that was the proceeds from the sale of Kush. So we're making an impact and will continue to do so. We work hand in hand with the Harris County Attorney, the Texas Attorney General's Office, and the City Attorney to file civil injunctions against the stores, like we've told you in previous press conferences, that sell this substance. I'm not going to go again into what Dr. Persse said. What I would stress to you guys is please get out there to continue to have the public to call us. The StopDrugsHouston.org website is a great way to give information so that we can continue to go out and find these stores, find the distributors, and make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks, Sergeant. Thank you, Sergeant. And now we'll take any questions that you may have.
Are you able to tell us where this bust happened? Are we talking about a retail store? Are we talking about somebody who, was caught with large packages selling it?
Sure. Like we've said, I'm not going to give a lot of details as far as the investigation or a suspect or identity or a location. I'll tell you that this particular incident occurred on the south side of Houston, but that's really as far as I'm going to go.
So we don't know if this came from like a convenience store or something else.
No, I'm not going to go into that.
Would you classify this as a mid-level distributor, low-level distributor? Could you give us like where they are on the food chain here?
From the seizures that we've made from June when we really began the initiative until now, this is one of the largest seizures that we've had. So I would say this was a large-scale distributor.
Do you know anything about what the final product was? That manufactured here, or did that come in from another state or another country?
I can't share that with you.
Can you tell us about the difficulty when, these manufacturers keep changing the ingredients and the chemicals inside? What is the difficulty from a law enforcement standpoint in trying to, continue to seize these drugs?
Sure. It's gotten much easier. As you know, the last legislative session, they changed it to where it's a little easier for us. The difficulty we have now is we have to test the substance, though, before I can typically charge someone. So that takes a little time as far as when we make a seizure and arrest. This case, we had some preceding facts that helped us be able to make an arrest last night when we did seize it. But as far as changing the substance, the legislature in the last session corrected that for us.
Can you elaborate on that? How they do that?
We pretty much kind of broadened the category. We just made it, it was not so narrow. Before it was very narrow, and you could just change the chemical mix, and it would then make it very difficult to bring any charges. We kind of opened it up a little bit more, which kind of, it's not now so restrictive that if you don't have the exact chemical mix, you can't file charges. It doesn't have to be as exact anymore. Okay?
Is there anything more the legislature can do to help you guys out in fighting this problem?
They can always provide us with more resources. That helps because it benefits everyone. It's not just on the criminal side. It affects the healthcare delivery system. So any additional resources that can help so we can do more in fighting it from a law enforcement point of view, would make it much easier for all of us.
What about the formula? Are there any extra chemical compounds they can add or anything like that?
Unless the DA's office tells us more, that they need more, you know, I think what we have right now is sufficient in order to bring these type of cases before us. But if they need more tools to work with, I'm certainly going to invite the DA's or District Attorney's Office and others to let us know, and we will join the effort in trying to get the legislature to do even more.
Do you have a sense of how many of these sting operations that have been conducted in the past several months? I feel like I've lost track. And then how many are still pending right now? I think it was mentioned a few months ago that there was 58 stores that you guys were looking into. Can you give us a sense of the continuing investigations?
Sure. I mean, our investigations grow every day. Like I said, when you guys put out to call Stop Drugs Houston or email stopdrugshouston.org, we get more clues and more stores that we follow up on. So it's a never-ending battle. We just, each time we get a store, we go after that store.
Do you have like an estimate on a number?
I couldn't give you an exact number today, no.
What's the death toll?
So that'd be a good question to ask the medical examiner's office. I don't have an exact number. I know it's not zero. And the other thing is, you got to keep in mind, if somebody dies directly from their Kush overdose or they die from a complication that follows and ensues. And so that'd be a good question for the medical examiner's office.
Can somebody describe where we're seeing these? I know we have these maps up, but it sort of seems like it, originally I know Herman Park was kind of a hot spot, but that moved down. Could you all talk about how that has changed?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the maps. Well, if you want to do that, sure. So on the far left, your far left, so this is a map of most of the greater city. And one thing you can point, you can see that the light purple is at least one Kush transport. And you can see that's spread throughout much of the community. Now the hotspots, in the inner loop, obviously, those are more active areas, and one of the things that we noticed was that right along the train line was one of our problem areas, and that's from July to October. And as you come over to the next one, it's the same geographic area of the city, but you can see that the colors indicating the transports is reduced greatly, although they're still throughout much of the city. So we have this concentrated area, and these next two maps are similar to the first two. We just zeroed in on the downtown area. And again, you can see the reduction in color when you go from the July to October map over to the October-December map, same time frame, same area, and you can see the reduction in color. And this is obviously done by a computer program that takes our data and then converts into those colors. So we do have the area with the higher concentration to be in the downtown area, predominantly along the train line. But to say that that's the only place, it would be wrong, which basically every neighborhood in the city, we're seeing at least one call.
And again, let me just point out, this is an ongoing effort because it is so connected to our other efforts, even in coming up with a comprehensive plan. I think the more that we can eliminate these items and keep them from being placed in the hands of people on the street, it will impact all of our strategies. So this is an ongoing law enforcement effort for us. Okay. Anything else?
Can somebody just describe what a kind of resource drain this has been on the fire department, on the police department, on everything?
Chief Rodriguez.
I can. I just want to give kudos again to our brothers of the Houston Police Department. We are loving some HPD right now with this type of arrest. As Dr. Persse was pointing out with the maps, during the months of July, August, and September, we saw a year-over-year growth just in South or Midtown, downtown Houston, of 62 to 72% increases in calls. Over the last 2 months, that growth is only 8 to 13%. So we are really loving some HPD. Those that impact on our resources and on the men and women of the Houston Fire Department running day in, day out, 30 calls or so on an engine. It's a large impact because it takes away from those other calls in the area. It causes resources to come from other parts of town. We also really appreciate the mayor's holistic approach and not just attacking one area of the city, but making sure everything is covered and everybody is covered, even with the homeless initiatives and efforts. So we are just really thankful for this team effort, a citywide team effort.
And I would be remiss, Councilmember Brenda STARDIG, you chair of the Public Safety and Homeland Security. You want to make some comments?
I just want to thank HPD for their work. We just, we recently had the bust in Spring Branch for the 1.9, over 2 million now, for an illegal game room. Now they're handling the Kush. We've got a number of issues across our city. I'm asking citizens to please report any suspicious behavior. We need your support and we need your help. As far west as Spring Branch, there's been incidents. Fire departments picked up victims. We need to make sure it's in every neighborhood. Please do not be naive and think it's only downtown. Please do not be naive and think it's only on East Side or South Side. It's everywhere. We need everyone to report it. Thank you.
Victims. We have spoken with doctors that had told us that they've seen victims as like 11-year-old children that have even gone to rehab because of this. So have the age of the victims expanded? Who is our main concern?
Sure.
Dr. Persse.
So you're absolutely right. Children are not immune to this. Adults are generally the ones who get it, and then they give it to kids. Sellers don't discriminate in selling it to kids, and so kids are not immune. Kids in early adolescence are prone to try new things, especially with peer pressure, it would be from their family or from their friends or from their family. If their family members are using it, there's going to be peer pressure. So children are not immune to it. The effects are not different with children, and so the potential devastating effects that we can see in adults, we can see in children. At this point, I'm not aware of any pediatric or children dying from it. But we do know of cases where young teens have had seizures and had other bad problems and been taken to the hospital. So yeah, we need to keep children in the equation as well. And then one other thing to point out is that sometimes, I think a lot of people think that folks smoke Kush and it's called synthetic marijuana. And marijuana is, people are starting to think maybe it's not so bad in some other states. But Kush can make people violent and act out and hurt others. And in fact, we've got a firefighter who had a broken finger. His finger was broken, taking care of a Kush bag, and he grabbed his hand and snapped his finger. So they become very violent and very dangerous. And so that's another thing, and danger to the first responders. But when people become violent, they also become a danger to themselves, not only in that can they hurt themselves while they're violent, but they can be hurt while people are trying to subdue them. It's bad all the way around. We've got to get rid of this drug. Thank you.
And that was an excellent question. If you look at this packaging is designed to be attractive to young people and kids. And they need to know this is not marijuana that's growing in a plant. This is not plant material. This is absolute poison. So for the parents out there and the young people out there, you don't play with your life playing Russian roulette. And this is how sick these dealers are and these stores are, that they're designing a package with the absolute hope that they can get young people on the stuff. So thank you for asking the question about young people.
All right, we're going to stop, and feel free to talk to any of these individuals, the sergeant, Chief Coran, I call him Coran, Acevedo, any of these individuals. And thank you for being here, and happy holidays, okay?